August 25, 1835. A New York newspaper claimed a famous astronomer had discovered life on the moon. No one died, but a whole city's common sense took a hard hit. So how did 6 newspaper articles pull off one of America's first viral moments? Picture Lower Manhattan on a warm summer morning. You can hear wagon wheels on cobblestones, shop doors opening, and the steady thump of a printing press blocks away. A paperboy threads through the crowd, shouting about great discoveries, and strangers lean in to read the same sheet. 4 days earlier, the paper had teased something big. It hinted that news was coming from overseas, and that it would change what people believed about the sky. By the time the first full article appeared, the audience was already primed to be amazed. The headline promised great astronomical discoveries, credited to the celebrated British astronomer Sir John Herschel. Herschel was a real name, respected and widely known, which mattered in an era when your trust often traveled through famous reputations. The story placed him far away, at the Cape of Good Hope in South Africa, where few readers could verify anything quickly. The first installment did something clever. Instead of starting with monsters and miracles, it started with machinery. It described a massive new telescope, built on a new principle. Being so powerful, it could supposedly reveal the smallest details on the moon's surface. Then it added an extra flourish, a special device with a scientific-sounding name, presented like the final breakthrough. The writing leaned hard on technical language and confident measurements. To an ordinary reader, it sounded like the same serious science they had been hearing about all decade. Once the how felt believable, the story moved to the what. Herschel, the paper claimed, aimed the telescope at the moon and found a landscape that looked shockingly Earth-like. There were plains, forests, and bodies of water, described with a kind of detail that makes your brain fill in the picture. And then the animals arrived, each one stranger than the last. Readers were told there were herds of bison-like creatures and odd-horned beasts. They read about colorful birds and 2-legged beavers living in huts, carrying their young the way people did. The series saved its biggest punch for later. The moon, it claimed, wasn't just alive. It was inhabited by intelligent, human-like beings. The description was so specific it felt like a field report, right down to a Latin label that made it sound official. These moon people were described as furry, winged, and strangely civilized. They supposedly built temples and monuments, as if the moon had its own ancient world waiting to be discovered. In the space of a few days, the story escalated from geology to wildlife to a full-blown lunar civilization. So why did it work? Part of the answer is the business of news in the 1830s. Cheap, penny papers fought for attention, and a sensational series could spike sales overnight. If a story sold papers, there was every reason to keep it going one more day. Another reason was speed, or the lack of it. There was no radio, no instant photographs, and no quick fact-check from the other side of the world. A claim tied to a distant location, and a famous name could live for days before reality caught up. Reprints poured fuel on the fire. Rival newspapers copied the story, which made it feel even more legitimate, like everyone had independently confirmed it. And soon, artists were drawing imagined scenes of the lunar landscape, giving readers something they could see as well as read. There was also the mood of the era. Americans were living through rapid change, crowded cities, loud arguments, and big new ideas. Many people wanted the universe to feel orderly and meaningful, and they were used to writers mixing moral certainty with scientific language. That matters because the moon story was dressed in the exact style people already trusted. It sounded like serious reporting. It sounded like the future. And it arrived in daily installments, which kept readers coming back, talking about it, and repeating it. Eventually, the spell broke. The paper acknowledged the series was fabricated, and the world moved on faster than you might expect. Some people laughed, some felt duped, and many simply enjoyed the ride, because the story had been entertaining even if it wasn't true. Herschel, meanwhile, had been doing real work, far from the newspaper's fantasy. His name had been borrowed to sell a tale, and the distance that made the hoax possible also delayed his ability to respond. In a way, that delay was the whole trick, a gap where imagination could sprint ahead of proof. The Great Moon Hoax is remembered because it shows a pattern that never really goes away. A trusted name, confident details, a hungry audience, and a business incentive can turn nonsense into truth long enough to spread. If that sounds modern, it should. Stories like this still matter because they teach us how belief moves faster than correction. If you want more Untold American stories like this, subscribe to Untold American Stories. Do you think you would have believed the moon articles in 1835? Or would you have called it a hoax right away?